Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode with Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, we're going to dig into my experiences with my newest freelance client. Yay!
And I'm excited because I don't know anything about it. So it's going to be new for me too. It's like, yeah.
Really, I'm excited to share. I mean, you guys, I think are probably aware that I will take freelance clients from time to time, but really with my schedule of teaching copywriting and running this business and doing all of that entails, I don't usually make a lot of time for taking freelance clients. But this opportunity came up, and I thought,
Good one.
I want to write for this client. So I have taken it on. So we'll kind of break down how that process has been so far. And Kate, you and I can also discuss, you're taking clients as well, and we can kind of discuss the whole process. But I thought this seemed like a good idea to chat through the onboarding and the getting up to speed with a new client and all of that, and what that means.
It's different for every client.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think there are things that I can share, having done this for so many years, that will be useful to a lot of you guys, even if you are just getting started with it.
Yeah, and I feel like we should spoiler first. We cannot give away the name of the client just yet. And there's Nicki signed an NDA, which non-disclosure agreement. So get that out of the way.
Yes, exactly. And it was some of the work that I've done has been put out into the world, so I can, grab that soon and put that on my portfolio when I get a free moment, of course. And it probably would be, by the time that we release this, it would probably be okay to say that, but I would rather just be extra careful of my new clients' privacy and that before I announce it on a podcast. Although I will say, having a great time so far. But yes, exactly. And the way this came about, like I said, is I'm not generally out there looking for new clients, pitching for new clients. You should be if you're working full-time as a copywriter. But for me, since so much of this is the business, I will kind of take work if it kind of comes to me. And this did come to me in that kind of a way. A woman that I have worked with, or, who is a mentor and a friend, reached out to me and said, hey, are you available to take a little bit of work? It's for this person. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't usually take on projects, but this, again, without giving, it's not like it's not a celebrity. This person is not a celebrity, but I absolutely know who this person is. I know who this woman is. I took courses from her, like more than a decade ago. So I was like, ooh, okay, I would love to know what goes on in her business. And I would love to be a part of that. And it really has been super interesting as a copywriter and as a business owner, which is, I think that's something that we kind of forget sometimes when we are taking on new project, is you get an opportunity to see how companies operate. And that's always interesting as well. So, that kind of made the introduction to their team. And I'm doing 5 hours of work per week. So clearly just not a ton of work for them. But it's been really fun so far.
Yeah, I want to ask you about working with, because I know they have a full-time, I believe, right on staff copywriter that you're working with. But before I get to that, because I think people are always intrigued about copy tests and, oh my God, I have a portfolio. Why the heck would I do a copy test? But tell us about your experience, because after how many years you've been doing that, I feel like you're up to like 20 plus years of copywriting. And there was a copy test.
Yeah. So for those of you who are maybe newer to us and you don't know what a copy test is, and I think we have an episode about it.
We'll link to it. So we'll do a quick,
Exactly. But in a nutshell, a copy test is it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your skills specific to their brand and their brand voice. So they might pull together a little project for you, something that's not going to take you very long, and have you work on it. Now, the trend, which we very much support and very much encourage, is paid copy tests. And this the one that I did for them was a paid copy test. Very fair. They told me what the project was. I told them how long I thought it would take them. And then they paid me my hourly rate for that time. And this copy test actually took me an hour and a half. We agreed on an hour and a half, but I was being paid for the work. So it doesn't, if it were a free copy test, which again is becoming rarer and rarer, which is great. But a free copy test really should only be something that's going to take you maximum a half hour, because we don't want to be doing a whole bunch of work for free. But this was a paid copy test. And honestly, I don't know about you, Kate, but actually I do know about you, Kate. I have a very strong sense you feel the same way. I like copy tests because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I can do this, and here's my past work, but I like the opportunity to dig into a brand and do the work first. So it's not just like, please believe me, and then we get in there and they have to get a sense of how I work and the writing that I can do. Can I write to their brand voice? Can't I write to their brand voice? I think it gives the client confidence, but quite frankly, a copy test gives the copywriter confidence too, because you sit down, you do the work, and you go, oh yes, I can do this. And then you turn your copy test, and hopefully, it doesn't go your way every time, but hopefully they'll get the copy test back or they'll get the copy test from you and say, okay, this is great. We can move forward with this. And so they gave me the copy test to work on, but couple of days to do it, a very reasonable amount of time. And yeah, they liked the work, and I liked the work that they were telling me that would be part of the project. And then I started working with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's exactly what you said. There's an opportunity too for you to make sure, okay, I think I want to work with this client, but actually sitting down and doing some work for them, you might realize, oh, I don't actually like this, whatever it is, that writing in this tone, writing for the types of projects they're going to want me to write for, whatever it is. So it is an additional opportunity for you to vet out whether this is something you want to move forward with or not. I will say the most recent client I onboarded with, I did not have a copy test, but the first project that we wanted to start with, there was actually a whole slew of projects. And what I said was, let's start with this first one. This is the highest priority. It was a smaller project. So essentially it became the same thing to say, okay, let's test out on this project that's going to take me max 3 hours, again, paid obviously because it was work. And let's make sure we're a good fit. Let's see, for me too, the important thing is, how do they operate? What's their feedback process like? What's going to be the working relationship between us? How are we going to collaborate? All of those sorts of things that you can start on a smaller project and then figure out, okay, is this a good fit or not? And then also just giving you insight to how you're pricing your projects moving forward, all of that sort of thing. And I think people are always so hesitant to be like, well, it's a 3 hours, even if my hourly rate's, $150, like, oh, that's not really a ton of money for a project. This client is going to, and I'm sure in your case too, even though 5 hours a week, it's going to translate to tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. So getting your foot in the door with a small project is actually a really great way. It might be kind of their substitute for a copy test to make sure that you are a good fit. Yes, they see your portfolio. Yes, that shows you what you can do, but they don't know what it's like to work with you. You're still untested and unproven within their system. Your portfolio says, yes, we want to work with them, but it gives you that chance to really feel it out.
Well, and the thing is like, you are untested to yourself for this client as well. And maybe people might be surprised to hear this coming from someone who has written copy for many, many years now, and written for some really big name companies. But there is that moment of like, what if I can't do this? And it's illogical, right? Like, I know that I will be able to do it, but there is that resistance, that voice in the back of your head that's going, what if you can't do it? Well, at least with a copy test, at least then it's like, oh, but it was on the copy test where they're like, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. I would much rather have that than a regular project where they're like, we were counting on you to do this work. And again, it's it's not logical because I knew that I would be able to do it. But a copy test. The funny thing is that a copy test actually, for me at least, takes the pressure
Yeah,
down a little
I'm
bit.
with you.
Yeah.
I think it's the same feeling, and I don't know if you've had this, but when you were growing up through grade school, middle school, high school even, every year you'd meet new teachers. And even if you were star student, A+ student, you did your work, it felt like there was something to prove again of like, wait, but like I'm a really good student. Me missing my homework one day, that's really out of character, but you have to show that again. And I feel like a new client is like that same feeling for me, is like, okay, I'm back in, day one of school. I need to establish this relationship. And who am I? How do I operate? What is her character? They don't know that yet. And so I
That's
feel like that pressure is alleviated a little bit.
I agree completely. And I notice myself, and I guess it is the things that you kind of forget until you start again with a new
Yeah.
client, there is the very much of like, I need to prove to you that I'm reliable, and I need to prove to you that I'm communicating well, and then I need to prove to you that I'm thinking this through and being very careful about this, and not obviously not to the point of like, notice me, notice that I'm doing this. But it's not that I'm being more professional or more deliberate or more strategic than I would be with another client, but I'm noticing myself doing it more deliberately because, to your point, they just don't know me yet, and there is that risk with anybody new that you work with, any new freelancer that someone brings onto a team. There is that element of like, okay, well, we think they're good and the test went well, but how's it actually going to work out? What's it actually going to be to work with? And as a business owner, I can tell you that there are plenty of people, maybe not plenty, but throughout the course of running business, there have been people who were like, all right, I think this is going to be great. You bring them in, and yes, we have wonderful people, but there are also always people that you're like, hey, I think this is going to be great. You bring them in, and then just kind of, they don't. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say like kind of a dud, or like they don't do what they're supposed to do, and they're not as communicative as they're supposed to be, and they don't meet deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So
the portfolio can't show that. It can only show, okay, you got to an end product that is really good. And that's obviously super, super important to getting the initial meeting with a client and getting your foot in the door and having these opportunities. But then, yeah, I think everything else has to come after with a working relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think one of the things that I want to make sure as we're talking about this through is that the I don't want to say nerves, but the feeling of being a little bit nervous
Pressure,
about working with a new client, that I don't think that ever disappears. Now, maybe
if it
this
does, I feel like
know,
that's,
right? Like,
I
should be a little
like,
concerned.
it's a good thing. Yeah. You care
Yeah.
about this client.
Exactly. And it might be even a little bit heightened for me because it came through a connection that I respect. And this client is a woman that I've been following for many years and I'm very impressed by. So that kind of amped up the pressure a little bit. But any new client, there is that element of like, oh boy, I really want to do my best here. And you should care. And that's okay. I think that the longer you do it, I mean, the longer you are a copywriter, the more you can expect that feeling and know, okay, I know this feeling. I know I just have to work through it, do my best and send in the work. And then also just know that it's going to abate faster. The original, like, oh, I feel nervous, which is not to say that you don't keep doing good work. This is a new kind of project for me, so I have to really kind of dig into this. But the nerves don't disappear, but they get so much easier to deal with the more clients you take on, And
it's what you always say too. You don't get over the fear before taking the action. You get it by get that confidence by taking the action. So I think with a new project, it's just that, okay, I know that this is going to take some time for me to show my communication skills, because I'm not going to your point, go over the top and do anything different. It's just, okay, we have to go through this first project for me to be able to have all these proof points to show my process and what it's like to work with me. And you just have to know that, like, okay, these things are coming and I'm going to be able to do them. And then you'll start to feel that, okay, I showed them not only that I can do the copy, but that my process is really effective and streamlined and buttoned up and I'm a professional, basically.
Exactly. And then, like you said, Kate, I'm working with their copywriter. They have a full-time copywriter, but they are gearing up for a launch that they do a little bit later in the year. And so they just knew they had extra work that needed to get done. And so I'm in there to support her. And I think for some people, probably maybe newer copywriters, that might be like, whoa, you are reporting to a copywriter, or that's her main copy. Is that, first of all, she knows what I'm there for. She knows that I am there to make her life easier, to
Not
take
to take
stuff,
her job.
not to take her job. I am there to take stuff off her plate and make her life easier. It's really a pleasure to work with a copywriter. She is knowledgeable and she understands this brand voice. She understands what kind of feedback, and we can get into that a little bit more, but she understands what kind of feedback that I need to get. And so we can collaborate, I think, a lot easier. I've certainly had clients in the past, and I know you have, Kate, as well, or had contacts within a company who were not, and you kind of had to pull the feedback out, like, no, not this. Okay, I understand. And why not that? And it is a lot smoother, on top of the fact that she is an expert in this company's brand voice and in their message. And, she's so dialed in. Her feedback has been fantastic. She's a pleasure to work with. Whenever you talk to a client, there's always like, I hope it's going to be, but we had our first call and I was like, oh, she's so smart. This is going to be fun. Yeah.
I love it. I'm curious too, to talk through whether they had an onboarding process and what that looked like, but then also from your own perspective, okay, here's what they did to onboard me, and here's some other things that you maybe asked and followed up on to make sure you had it for your own. Hey, I have a new client. Here's kind of the things I need and want to look at and dive into to really get a sense of what tone and direction and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a really interesting time to be partnering with their team, because this woman is kind of changing her brand voice a bit. So the interesting thing is that I've been on her newsletter list for many, many, many years, but because they are evolving the brand voice, I had been kind of used to it and really kind of expecting a slightly different tone of voice than they are moving her into. And so there was for me a little bit of unlearning as I came into it. I kind of have her voice in my head and from her podcast and listening to it, and there's a shift that I'm kind of coming into the middle of. So there, to a not a huge degree, but to a certain degree, I was actually a little bit put on the back foot, if that's the right way to phrase.
Yeah.
Right? Who knows what by previous knowledge that I had, or previous experience that I had. But no, so after the copy test, we had she said, okay, this is great. We'll move forward. And I think actually, as I recall, I think she gave me some feedback on the copy test and said, okay, love this and this, I changed to this for this reason. And depending on time with projects, sometimes she will, if she has time to give me the feedback and ask for ask for a change, then I will do that. She will say, I'm so sorry, but we had to get this through. So I just made these changes, which I completely understand. Exactly. Yes, is it ideal that our clients give us time to make changes and make revisions? Absolutely. But also in this scenario, they're on a tight timeline. I am still ramping up as it comes to the brand voice. I'm also ramping up too when it comes to the time it takes to write for them, because they are so, I realize I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I'll come back to this, because they are so meticulous about their brand voice, especially because they're moving into a variation of it, or a kind of a new version of it. Takes me longer than I might usually take to write some of these projects. I know that I will get faster as I get acclimated to it. Not a ton faster, because I don't need to speed through anything, but I know that does take me a little bit more time. And obviously they're respectful of my timeline. I don't work for them full time, so they're not giving me something in the morning and saying, hey, we need this for the afternoon. And that can affect their timeline. So there are going to be times when she says, okay, I just had to make this change, but here's why I made this change, which is great because even if I don't make the change myself, she explains to me why, and I can kind of tuck that away for the future. But anyway, back to, we had our first call, and what she kind of explained to me was the timeline of what's going on for the next couple of months, what the projects are, what the dates are, all of the kind of elements that kind of come into well, not really all the elements, but the events that are coming up. And as things have been assigned to me, I've understood okay, all right, these elements, are they using this to nurture the audience? Oh, okay, they're using this to send stuff to affiliates. Oh, they're using this to get new people, get new opt-ins on the email list, and they're using this as an ad within the podcast, and all of that kind of thing. And they have some onboarding documents. They have onboarding documents about the brand voice. They also have onboarding documents about how they use their project management system. The lucky thing is that, Kate, you and I know we use Asana and we use Slack, and they use the same. They use Asana differently, which is very interesting. Yes. I don't want to get too shop talk here. You and I will talk about it some other time, but the way that they use it is different. I like the way we use it a little bit better, but you're used to what you're used to.
Yeah.
But so that has been kind of helpful. But then, there are just things that you learn as you go. And as stuff comes through, you ask questions and you just kind of stay on the ball. But they are very specific. This team's been around for a while, and they have some dialed in processes. So, this is exactly how we use Asana. When something is assigned to you, this is the deadline, and look here for the deadline. When you're done with it, go up here and reassign to this person. And Slack is for this kind of message. And so it's a really nice dialed in process. Now, the first couple of times I have had to go back into the standard operating procedures and be like, okay, I uploaded it. Yeah. What do I do now? And there, even at the end of projects, there have been some where I'm like, okay, there's nobody else on this ticket but me. And normally you would have me reassign it to someone, but I can't. So what would you like me to do here? And obviously it's not a big deal. She's like, oh, okay, great. I'll let so-and-so know. But in trying to follow the process, sometimes it's like, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, what's the process in this situation?
Exactly.
I think that's so important to say, though, what you said about you just learn as you go with this sort of thing. And as you have more and more clients and have more and more experiences, that learning process might be faster potentially. But I think I know a lot of CCA students want to see, like, what does this end up looking like? But literally there's as many processes as there are clients, and the tech stack. So like what, you mentioned Asana, Slack, maybe they use Google Drive. The elements that they're using are going to vary client to client. So I have one client that uses Jira. And I know you've used that in the past. Yeah. And so they
old school for me.
How they move through projects is very, very different than in an Asana. And so you just have to be part of that experience. And to Nicki's point, if they have a document, go back and reference that to make sure you're following that process. If they don't have something like that, then make sure you know your point of contact and just say, hey, as questions come up, I want to make sure I'm understanding your process right. Because some companies are better than others at documenting what their procedures are. Some clients you might find don't have any system, and you might be helping them and guiding them and saying, here's my thoughts on this, or what might be helpful to keep things organized. And you can certainly offer that as you go. But for example, I think your point, I have one client that wants me to send through certain things, CC people, not just on the person who is reviewing it, but for also their social team, because their social team will take what I've done and build off of that, or it's just good insight. And one of the times I forgot to send it to everyone, which was, And so then I was like, okay, I need this for myself. I'm going to create what's my checklist when I send something through. Okay, here's all of their email addresses. So I have it in a Google Doc, so I can just copy and paste into the email when I'm ready to go and send them that copy. But every single one is, so, I still have that client that I send that through, it uses Word docs, and they want Word docs versus Google Docs. And so it's, I feel like that's one thing, just worry about when you have to. And by that, I mean, don't worry, because you won't have to worry. You just figure it out once it happens, and they will give you a process. And if they don't give you a process, then it's totally fair to ask the questions of, hey, what's the easiest way to make sure this doesn't get lost? And always framing it as the benefit to them. Hey, I just want to make sure this is as streamlined as possible. Come with suggestions. Here's my thought. And maybe they'd be like, oh, yep, thank you for that, but actually here's how we do it. Great.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things is that they may have systems. You may have to come up with systems for yourself.
Yep.
Like even just working on this project, because everything is in Asana, and in Asana, once a project is closed out, it disappears.
Yep.
And I'm so used to the way that we use Asana, and I have it all on my
Yep.
dashboard, and I could change my settings in theirs. I don't need to, but I think I was in the second weekend, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, let me make sure I'm on top of my invoices. And then I went, wait, what projects did I do for the last week? And I went, oh, Nick. So I have a running document of the projects I've done and what I've sent through invoices for and how many hours that took me, and because it's nobody's job but my own to track the work that I'm doing, make sure I'm not going over on hours. Because frankly, if they're like, okay, can you take this project on? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And if I've already hit my 5 hours, that's nobody's fault but me.
Yep.
If I had already hit my 5 hours and said, yeah, I can absolutely take it, quite frankly, I would do that work for free, because I had told them,
It's your screw up.
That's my fault. Exactly.
But I feel like you also have the option to be like, hey, I'm at 5 hours. I have time to certainly do this and squeeze this in, but here's what I think additional hours I'll need to do this. Is that okay?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the optimal situation, is to know where you are in your hours. And they may say, oh, you know what, I'm going to hold off on it for next week, or, I'm sure there are going to be some times when I'm sure there are going to be some. With most clients, I would say there might be times when it's a little bit lighter, and you can maybe like, if there's anything you can send to me right now, I can get started on it this week. I have a feeling there's going to be plenty of work, and there's not going to be any shortage of hours for me. But
that is a good point, because if you're on a retainer and you're just like, I'm banking this money, and
nobody wants
just
that.
Be a good partner to them and say, hey, I actually have this much time left in the week. Feel free to shoot anything over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Is there anything I can get ahead on? Is there anything that that only helps. Hey there, it's Nicki. I wanted to take a very quick minute to make sure that you knew about our free on-demand copywriting training. Now, whether you are brand new to copywriting or you've been doing it for a while, but you just can't seem to hit those income goals, this training is for you. You are going to learn the 3 secrets to landing freelance copywriting work without relying on frustrating job bidding sites like Upwork or Fiverr, or without cold calling strangers. And if you've watched any of the student success stories on this channel, and if you haven't yet, check them out. This is the exact same training that they all started with. And I mean students like Kate K, who is making 6 figures working part-time and retired her husband to help her build her business. Students like Stuart, who replaced his full-time salary, which was a good one, with his freelance income and then some. Stacy, who hit 6 figures in her first 6 months as a freelance copywriter, and Ashley, who landed the in-house copywriting job of her dreams. They all started with this free training, and you can start with this free training too. So sign up right now at freecopywritingtraining.com.
And I think the only thing in terms of processes, you might have processes that you have developed for yourself in your business that you actually have to adapt to their system. So for example, if you're like, well, I always bill my clients via Wise or whatever, and maybe they have I think 90% of my clients have a preferred means of paying.
Yes.
So I adapt to that. I don't say, well, I want you to pay via this method. Certainly, could you ask? Yeah. But if it's a bigger organization and they just have, especially as it relates to finance, you might just have to accept kind of what it is that they've already got locked down.
Yeah, exactly. Most corporations have a way to do things. And even, I mean, she's not, well, I guess technically we're a corporation.
Right,
we are incorporated, but they have a system. And we talked about the fact that I signed an NDA. So they're in which it's very standard. I can share my samples once those samples are public. So I can put them on my website once those, but obviously I can't talk about the projects that I'm working on before those projects happen. And then I also sign a contract with them, just delineating my hourly rate, that is 5 hours per week. It's all very reasonable, I should say. Obviously, anytime that someone gives you a contract, read it through very carefully. Make sure that you understand everything. It's very unlikely that as a freelancer, you would need an attorney to look at a contract. It's not going to be that complicated. But if there's something in it that you don't understand, or maybe a term you don't understand or something, ask them. Just make sure that you're clear. I mean, sure, you can first run it through ChatGPT or Google it or something, but you want to make sure that you understand what they mean in the contract, not just how ChatGPT interprets it or Google interprets it.
And depending what's in the contract, maybe you don't want to feed it to the internet powers that be, depending what's in it.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing, it's a little thing that's a big thing, and I want to make sure that I mention it before we get into some of the other topics, is kind of as part of systems, because you're external to their team, you might not have access to all of the documents that you need. So, for example, one of the first projects, she said, "Oh, will you have time to do this within the next couple of days?" She gave me a firmer deadline, but just for our purposes, worked out to be a couple of days. And said, "Yeah, absolutely." I kind of looked into Asana, took a little look at the project and went, "Oh, okay, great." And then thinking to myself, okay, I'll hop on it tomorrow morning. And I got into, the next morning I got up and thought, okay, and clicked into the Google Docs, and I did not have access to get into the Google Docs. And so obviously I requested access and they gave me access, and I had plenty of time to get it done. But that was also a reminder to me. Yeah. Yes. And a reminder to you that when you get a project, the first thing through is go through don't just read it, click through any links and click through. And even there was one project where there are a lot of people on this team, and one of the project managers was like, "Oh, okay, HubSpot, which is a marketing software." They said, "Oh, HubSpot is tracking all of our open rates for our emails. So we want to make sure, or we are tracking them in HubSpot. So we want to make sure that we kind of stick with styles that are getting the highest open rate." And she had the links, and I tried to click through HubSpot, and I don't have a HubSpot access through them because I'm not on their team. But I was able to message her and say, "Hey, I don't have," and she said, "Oh, okay, great. Thank you for the heads up. So I'll copy and paste them into the doc." But that would not have been good if it had been like 2 weeks in and I was like, "Oh, by the way, I don't have," that would show that I hadn't been paying attention, right? So when you get a project, which obviously I would pay attention, but also don't be afraid to be like, "Oh, I actually can't access this." When you get a project, read through everything, make sure you understand everything, click all the links, and make sure you have all the resources that you need. There was another project that they assigned out. It was a different kind of email that I hadn't written yet, and they had the information that I needed. But because it was a different kind of email, I asked my contact, "Can you send me an example one or a previous one you sent?" Yeah. So I have a sense for the length that you're looking for. Because if their standard length for one of these is a certain, I don't want to be writing something that's a lot shorter, and I want to be writing something that's a lot longer. Like, could I make it longer? Could I make it shorter? Of course. But that just adds an extra step. That adds an extra review step for her, and that adds an extra writing step for me. And that just makes things so much more difficult when I can just ask for an example. I think especially when you're new to a team, but just always in general, don't be afraid to ask for things. If something is not clear, ask. Or I know we've heard sometimes from students saying like, "Well, they mentioned this in a meeting and I didn't know what it was, so I went and looked it up later." And I guess it's okay if you wait until after a meeting to ask someone, but if you have the opportunity, always ask in the moment. I think sometimes we, especially newer copywriters, assume that it's something that everybody else knows.
Everyone knows everything.
Exactly. If they were more experienced copywriter, they would know what it is. But sometimes it's an internal term. And you couldn't possibly know it. And they're just using it because they always use gosh, we have so many acronyms in our company. It's an internal term that everybody knows, and they forgot that you don't know that term yet. It's perfectly reasonable to be like, "Oh, before we go on, I don't think I'm familiar with this term." And also, even just the standard copywriting terms or standard marketing terms, there are all kinds of variations, like even lead magnet, freebie, opt-in, there's so many different, here's a good one. Sometimes companies will sell an initial low-priced offer and then upsell from there. Sometimes that's called an SLO, a self-liquidating offer. Sometimes that's called a tripwire. Sometimes I've heard people call it a mini offer. I can't even think. There are at least 5 other terms for that. So it's not just because somebody uses a term that you don't know, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're revealing something about yourself, about being less experienced. It's just the term they use. But make sure that you know what it is.
Yeah. I think related to that, establish your own processes for keeping this information handy. So for example, if there are terms that you want to have a Google Doc of terms this client uses, I have one that uses client instead of customer, that sort of thing. And it's not they don't have a tone guide. They don't have a style guide. And so I'm kind of keeping a record for myself of things they've told me, and I don't want them to have to tell me again, because that is a bad look. It's not great when a client comes back and says, we've told you this before. You need to remember. So you need a system for that. And so one of the things I like to do, so you mentioned asking for resources. So I think a great example, I have a client and they had some demographic information. And I was like, well, okay, you're talking about your US based customers. Where did this come from? And age ranges and all this. Can you share the rest of that so I can see what other countries are people buying from? What other age ranges are there besides your most popular one, and that sort of thing? That might be useful to the project I'm working on, but then I can bookmark that. I have a bookmark folder for each client that I have. And within that folder of bookmarks are links like this that I want to be able to quickly reference. So style guides fall under that. Surveys, if there's a client, kind of like their overview, their mission, their values, all of that sort of thing. Where is this key information? Is there that onboarding doc that you have? And so you can go to your folder and have all of those links. And as time goes on, maybe you need to reorganize that and have folders within folders, whatever, fine. But just have a system to start that works for you. So you're not, where was that? That's in my email somewhere. And we all know Gmail's email search, I feel like, is really bad considering they're a search engine. Really bad. But then in terms of getting what you need too, I think always looking ahead. So having a task, especially if you have a recurring with a client. So you have 5 hours work a week with this client that is recurring. This goes for anyone, any amount of reoccurring work with a client. You want to look ahead at what you're going to be working on. So for example, if I have a client that's going on vacation soon, I want to look ahead and say, okay, she's out of office. Is there anything I need to get my work done before that time? And so it's just a good habit at the beginning and end of every week is what I like to do, to just look over, okay, is there anything coming up? What's happening this week? Just a high level, click on all those links, like you said, make sure you have everything. And there's nothing wrong with doing that a week out even. Yes, hey, I see this coming up, because sometimes then that project needs to get pushed out because they haven't thought through it. Because again, copy is always one of the first things on a project. So you're often the one finding these inconsistencies or finding these holes of, oh shoot, actually the order of operations needs to be different because you found this thing that we didn't even realize was there. And so you want to make sure that doesn't screw up your workload, and that you have the work that you were planning on doing. They can fill it with a different project if needed, or they can just scramble on their end to get you what you need to kick it off at the right time.
Yeah. Well, and to your point about taking notes, take notes on the feedback too. Like, don't just go, oh, okay, great. Process the feedback. When again, she's really great to work with, this copywriter. So smart and so insightful. And for a couple of times, she gave me feedback via Loom, which was fantastic because I can go back and watch it again. But at the same time, I watched it a couple of times and I took notes. She said okay, we're the little bit less conversational here. Okay. Oh, interesting. Get right into it a little bit. But then, okay. And then on this project, it's going to be, because it's for an ad and she's speaking this, we're going to dial up the conversational, and then, and we're looking for details. We need it to be a little bit more sensory. It would be very easy to see the changes in the document, read through once, and then go, oh, okay, but then you don't learn anything. And our goals as copywriters is to get better and better and better. We will probably never get to the point, not never, but never get to the point where we get no feedback. Right? There will be some projects where it's like, oh, this was great. Or maybe I made this like one little tweak, or, or I loved all of it. Can I just see one more subject line option? Something like that. But I fully expect they will continue to get feedback. It's a big project, big projects, big teams, a lot of stakeholders. But I want to get better as I go. And the only way to get better as I go is to listen to the feedback, learn from the feedback, and assimilate it. Because the only way that I can make her job easier, make everybody on that team's job easier, is if I get better. If they still have to give me the same amount of feedback, or like you were saying, Kate, worse, the same kind of feedback again and again and again, I'm not helping anybody. I'm dragging them down. And I'm sure none of us ever want to be that person We want to get better. And with any brand, it takes time to learn a brand voice. It takes time to learn their systems, and that's totally fine. And clients understand that. They understand that there's feedback. There always will be feedback. But at the same time, we all want to continue to get better the more we work with them. And we will, as long as we assimilate that feedback. One more thing that I want to talk about is, especially with a new client, you need to be at your freshest. Kate, I know that for both of us, there are clients that we have worked with for so long that we can do great work practically any time of day. Maybe, I mean, my 2:00 slump. So maybe not at my 2:00 slump, but
give her a Sprite and she's on it.
Full sugar only, which I only allow myself once every 5 years. But for a new client where there's still a lot of learning, and you're still sitting down and you're thinking, right, how am I going to, this is the message that I have to get across. This is the way that I have to get across, or the tone that I need to work with, how I'm going to make these two work together. You need to be at your very freshest. So, we've talked before in CCA students, we have the Master Your Schedule course. If you've not gone through that, go through that. But you need to know when your best time of day is and set that time aside for your new clients and make sure that you are fresh for it. And for me, that time is first thing in the morning. And I want to get that work done before this workday starts, frankly. So I'm getting up extra early and sitting down. But I know that when I sit down, I wouldn't even tell you how early it is. It's early. But when I sit down and get a cup of coffee or whatever, check my horoscopes first, I know that I will be the freshest that I will be that day. But then there are also factors, like especially with new clients, there are factors that I want to incorporate. I went to book club last week, and it was Wednesday night, and we're all hanging out. I love my book club girls. And we talk about the book for like 15 minutes, and the rest of it is just catching up on life and having wine. But I had to be cognizant of the fact that I had to be fresh first thing in the morning. So I think I had like a glass, maybe two of wine, knowing that I couldn't have more than that because I needed to get up and be at my best the next morning. And yes, we should do that for all of our clients and be at our best for our clients. But I know the way my brain works, and I know that to be at my best, I needed to be well slept and get up early in order to have my best shot at doing the best work that I could for that brand. If I tried to push that to another time of day, it wouldn't be as good. It would be a struggle for me. I would be doubting myself. And it's, set yourself up for success by setting aside those best hours, especially for a new client. And then as you get better at it, you might not have to use those. Maybe then another new client gets those fresh hours, or maybe once you're more used to working with a client, you can kind of balance it out and go, okay, just based on when deadlines are, of course. Yeah. But be extra aware of your energy and your creativity, especially when you're just starting new work with a client, because that's when you really, really need to be dialed in and let your creativity and strategy work with each other at their very, very best.
I think related to that too, you need to know if it's a bigger project that you know that you best energy time, you've got like 2 or 3 really solid peak energy hours, and it's like an 8-hour prod. You think, okay, it's going to take me 8 or 10 hours or whatever it is. Then you need to budget that in your timeline for getting it done, to say, okay, I need to use my best hours today, but I'm also going to need to use them, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever the days are. And then tell the client, okay, I need this amount of time. Because me personally, especially with a new client, I need extra sleep on it time is what I call it. Like I need to come back to it the next day fresh. I need less of that time, to your point, as I get to understand and work with a client. But at the beginning, I need a lot of just extra space to walk away from it and work on other things.
Yeah, that's a great point. Of course, it would be a great point because it came from you. But that I think sometimes we think, well, I can get this project done so quickly. I've got 6 hours. I've got 8 hours tomorrow. I can crank it out. No, you can't. I don't know what a single copywriter who can sit down and write great copy for, like you're saying, Kate, maximum 4 hours, but more like 2 or 3, especially with a new client, because it's more draining. It's draining your energy even more so because of all the brain power that goes into it. And actually that's something I forgot is that she asked me, she said, okay, what kind of turnaround time works for you? And I said, you know what, in general, I can turn around things pretty quickly. When possible, I like to have an overnight just so I can work on something and then I can set it aside, let it percolate, have sleep on it, literally. Well, I mean, not literally. It's not in
your laptop's
under my mattress. Princess and the Pea. There's copy under my mattress. I must be a princess. And then then I get some bonus fresh time the next morning because I know that my early morning hours are the very best time for me. So I said, can I do last minute turnaround stuff? Yeah, absolutely. If you need me to, but you will get better work from me. We'll all be happier if I can have at least a night incorporated with it. And again, it's 5 hours a week. So it's not like I'm going to be getting massively huge projects. We need you to write this entire sales page and the emails to go with it. And we need it for tomorrow. That's not going to happen. They couldn't give me a project that big and fit that in. But I think it was good good for us to be on the same page and understanding what a reasonable turnaround time looks like as well. And if a client doesn't ask that, mention that to them and just say, hey, just so you're aware, the best way for you and I to work together is if when you give me a project, you can give me, and obviously my schedule is a little bit more, I was going to say more flexible. It really depends on what your life is. I run my own company, so I can be like, this project's going to go this way. I'm going to do this. But your schedule, and it may be that you can't turn around a project any more than 4 days in advance, which is totally fine, totally reasonable. You just want to communicate that to your clients, make sure that you and your client are clear on what that looks like. I know that sometimes clients will come to us with last minute stuff and we're like, I just really want to make them happy. And so we feel like we have to do it. And maybe you can do them a favor that first time, but after that, make it clear what your standard turnaround time needs to be. Okay, so that is kind of the initial ramping up stage. Yeah. And again, I'm really only 2-3 weeks into working with them. So really very much new to the company, new to learning the brand voice, new to all of this. I am very much enjoying it. It is fascinating to see how another company works. It's also really gratifying how much they think about the copy. It's really gratifying to see how much they value it and how careful they are about and how much thought they put into it. So for I know there's still some people out there like, hey, AI is going to take our jobs. Not for the good companies. For the companies that understand that messaging matters, they take it seriously. But it's really has been a pleasure to stretch myself into a totally different brand voice and to collaborate with all of these people and see how much it's valued at a very successful company. If I have more to share, we'll do an update further on, perhaps. But yeah, this is what I have to. Nicki's got a new client.
Yeah.
This is what the process has been, and yeah, I think one of the things I just want to emphasize is that whether you've been doing it for 20 plus years or 15 plus like me, or 15 plus years like Kate, or if you're taking your first client, there's a lot of it that's the same. There's still the like, oh, can I do this? Or there's still and you just have to go, yes, okay, you can do this. Just, don't try to do it. Do it when you're fresh. And are you going to feel nervous about it? Yes, absolutely. Are you going to sit down and do it anyway? Yes, you are. And you're going to do your best, and and there's going to be a learning curve, and you're going to, all of the things that we talked about in this episode. Again, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and it's the same thing that you have to do if it's your first client or your first 5 clients, but it all gets easier and smoother the more clients you start taking, and the more that you build your experience and you build your career. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. We've kept you guys for a little while, but I hope this was helpful. And with that, We will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.